So the funding of the buyout is usually done with insurance, life insurance, disability buyout insurance. But if you have an uninsurable owner, often is the case because they're too old or they've been sick or whatever, or if they just don't want to pay the premiums, how do you fund it? Don't tell me insurance, because that's all you do. And I know you want to sell insurance, but how do I fund it? What do I do?
Cash flow.
Cash flow. Cash flow from the business. Maybe, maybe not. What if the cash flow is like this? So it takes some expertise, but you can build in protections for the owner. I had this situation come up years ago. A gentleman owned an engineering company. He was based out in New York. He was my client. He was my client, not the company. He was the majority owner. We built a buy-sell agreement for him, where he was selling pieces of his company to his management team over a period of 10 years. There were limits on the amount that the management team had to pay in given the cash flow of the business, so we didn't want to constrain the management team to make them have to buy something that they couldn't afford. That's fair to them. But fair to the owner, we also had the ability to claw back ownership if a certain amount wasn't sold by a certain date. And so you can build in all types of protections and triggers into the agreement that's gauged around the ability of the company to generate cash flow. I have one that's going on right now. It's a lobbying business. The chief lobbyist, his name is on the business. His daughter's involved, and there are two other outsiders. And the three younger ones are going to run and own the business. And the deal was, if we don't collect the amount of revenue that we're collecting right now over the next 5 years, at least that amount, then you'll get what we collect. And the owner was okay with that because he's already done well out of the business. He's taken out all of the earnings out of the business every year. And if they're successful because his name is attached to the business and they're able to carry it on into the future, he was okay with that because he has confidence in them that they'll be able to do it. So we put a cap on the amount that has to be paid, and if it's less, if they generate less, then he gets less. But he'll get a consulting agreement if he's going to continue working. We structured it in a way that's tax effective, tax efficient, but also realistic based on the cash flow of the business. This is going to give us business continuity. It's going to give us peace of mind if we do it right. It's going to provide income to a founder if there is disability. We want to build that in. If the managers, the people who are going to continue the business, or his partners, her partners continue the business, they can provide for that, and they're willing to provide for it. It's all part of the negotiation. And we can provide for a negotiated price. Again, appraisal is the easy way out. Just build a buy-sell agreement and say, it's based on the appraised value at date of death. And I see a lot of them that do that. The problem with that approach is it may not be what everybody expected. Maybe too much, maybe too little. How are we going to pay for it? Have you funded it properly? It doesn't always work for a 100% owned business, a buy-sell agreement. Because who am I entering into the agreement with? I could enter into the agreement with somebody who's on the management team, but what if they leave and they don't want to buy the business? So it may be that the owner has to actually give some stock to the management team to incentivize them to stay in the game, which is often what we have to do. We have to give them something. They pay tax on it, or we actually gross up their compensation so that they don't have to pay any tax on it. We give them 10%, 15%, 20%, whatever it is to incentivize them to stay, and then the rest of it may have to be bought out. Different structures for different businesses. Again, I've talked about the difficulty of funding, and it doesn't always work. The biggest challenge that I have found in business succession planning is not the contracts or even the structure. It's the choice of who is going to succeed in the business. And often, there's no time left to make that decision. What do I mean by that? I got a guy who came to me, he's been a long time estate planning client of mine, but we had always talked about doing business succession planning. 10 years ago, we had the first discussion of it. Now he's gotten to the point where he called me last week and he said, I'm burned out, I want to sell the business. I said, okay, can you sell it to a third party? Well, we had a contract and then they backed out at the last minute. So I'm trying to figure out how to transition it to the next generation of managers. I said, okay, do you have the managers selected? Do you know who they are? Yeah, I have this one guy, but nobody else likes him. And then I have these other people who they're constantly bickering with each other. I said, it doesn't sound like you have the management team in place that's going to run this business. Or if you do, it's going to be a disaster waiting to happen. And if you're going to stage out the purchase price over a period of time so that you get something for this, you may not ever see it because this whole thing will go down the tubes. So we're trying to build a business succession plan logically, and he's resistant because he wants to get out now. I can't wait a couple more years. That's what I always hear. I'm done. I can't wait a couple more years. I've got to sell it today. I don't care what I get. I have another guy selling his business. He's got a special needs kid. He wants to get out of the business today. He said, I want to sign the contract that we just got, purchase agreement, and today, and I want to get the deal closed in 2 weeks. I said, I can't represent you. Our firm can't represent you because what you're asking us to do is commit malpractice. We're not doing something in your best interest. We're not acting as your fiduciary, as your proper counsel. He said, oh, no, I want you to represent me. I trust you. I said, well, then it's going to take 30 to 45 to 60 days because these are the issues that we have to deal with. He signed a letter of intent without having anybody review it. And the letter of intent for the deal says nothing about his limitation on liability if something goes wrong or if something is found to be wrong. So if they pay him, is he going to have to pay it all back or some of it back? Because he breached some representation and warranty in this purchase agreement that he was about ready to sign, which was 65 pages long. I mean, these are things that our job is to protect our clients from that. Your job is to protect your clients from that by bringing in the right advisors. And as much in a hurry as they are, the difficult case, you've got to try to slow them down because the disaster could be worse. They may be giving something away when they could have waited a little bit longer, been a little bit more patient, and gotten something a little bit better to protect them in that instance. The family can continue owning the business even if they're not the operators. And that's the example of the big company that I'm working on. The difficulty is if you have a charismatic entrepreneur who's really involved in running the business from day one, they don't like to give up control until the business is completely sold or out of their hands. And so even if they bring in a management team, they may be subversive to the overall functioning of the management team, which is where the board has to come in and say, stop it. You have to stop doing this, or we're going to all walk away and you're on your own. It's like, oh, okay. So the idea of the family continuing to own and operate the business, the tech company that's $40 million that he wants his spouse to do it, well, we have to build the governance structure for that so that it works for the management team. Because they're not just going to take orders from the widow of the guy that built this company. They're not going to be willing to do that. Which gets into management succession planning, which is an area that is just burgeoning. I think I said, or maybe I did, 50 to 65% of all baby boomers are going to retire in the next 10 years. Or they're going to transition to a much lesser role. 50 to 65%, which is the largest population segment in our economy. What that says to me is that we have a glut of sellers of small business. It's very intuitive, it's logical, and it's real, and it's happening. We have a glut of sellers and not enough buyers. So what does that mean economically? Economics 201 or 202, I can't remember which one it was. It was probably 201. Brock, what does that mean?
Low price. Supply and demand.
Supply and demand. Supply is great, the demand is not quite as great. That's going to affect the price unless there's no elasticity and anybody will pay anything at any given time. And so what the economic reality is, we have too many businesses for sale, and the valuations that they want for their businesses are a little bit overinflated. In fact, way overinflated, and over the long term, unless you get out in the next 10 years, unless your clients can get out in the next 10 years, it's going to be a shark fest for the buyers. Or businesses are just going to close, which is what has happened. One client, this is very unfortunate. Husband and wife, husband died, the wife inherited the business. It was a good business. They generated good profits, not big, maybe it was $1.5 million in revenue a year. Nice profit margins, they generated a nice living on it. Wife is not good at keeping the business running. She was involved in the business, but she wants to sell it. We got an offer for the business which was insultingly low. And so she said, well, should I take it? I said, well, if you kept the business operating, would you be able to make more money over a short period of time? And maybe it's worth it just to do that and then close the doors. It turned out that the buyer who was offering the price were her employees that she did not sign to a non-compete or non-solicitation. So they are basically telling her that unless you give us this company, we're walking out the door and we're going to take your clients with us. So it doesn't always end happily. The idea is to come up with a plan to try to allow the family to continue owning the business, but having it operated by others, or having a family member involved in the operation of the business, and having the other family members on the sidelines. How do you do this? If you have a strong management team, that's how you do it. So let's look at the